So welcome, Evelyn. Hey, Haley. I'm really glad that you guys are here, and we might have other people popping into the space. I'm not sure. Facebook, hello, Facebook. If there's anyone out there on Facebook, Facebook is not loving me at the moment. It's taken my 500 invites down to 50, and it's stopping me from messaging people. So I haven't been spamming. I've only been doing free events, but Facebook is not giving me the love. It's giving me the shutdown at this time. Anyway, fortunately, I've got a good amount of friends who are going to keep on sharing on behalf of me to help me keep on getting what I'm up to out there. But today, I'm really happy to have this conversation because I know that sales is a bit of a weird space for many people, and I don't know what it is about me, but I really love it. I really enjoy sales. And, it might be partly to do with I grew up with entrepreneurial parents. And so I saw my dad hanging out with people and just saw sales as a natural conversation. There just happens to be something of mutual interest, which is taking place there. However, let's first of all kick off by finding out from you guys. When I say the word sales, so please unmute yourselves. Everyone unmute yourself at this moment so we can just hear some of the words that come into the mix. When I say the word sales, what are some of the words that come to mind?
Ugh. Not a word.
No, but it's a sound that conveys a lot of words.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the tension in the shoulders that comes up there. What other things come to mind?
Selling yourself.
Selling yourself. Yeah. Anything else?
Sharing.
Sharing. Okay, cool. That's where we're going to be going. That's for sure. What are your thoughts around what the social zeitgeist is around sales? So what do you think that the traditional or the commonplace perception is of what sales is about?
That it's sleazy.
Well, let's go back again. Haley, can you go first?
Kind of manipulative.
Manipulation. Yeah, great. That's something. I see a nod that's coming there. So manipulation. What else have we got? Lexi, did you start to say something?
Yeah, I said sleazy, like a sleazy kind of slimy feeling to it.
Yes, this SL sound, the sleazy and slimy. This is something which is commonly there in relation to sales. Hey, James and Turn, welcome, guys. I've just asked people what words or phrases, ideas come to mind when I say the word sales. So if you've got anything to add into that, that can kind of give us a sense of some of our original or our starting point in terms of what our framing is. Evelyn, have you got anything to add into that? No, you've just muted yourself.
I just muted myself. For me, sales is about sharing something, like sharing my gift.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of, I get really excited to talk about different services, especially if they are not mine.
Mm-hmm.
So,
what's the difference about sharing something which is not yours to sharing something which is?
That's a good question.
Mm.
I guess it doesn't involve sales then. It's more about just something amazing and not trying to get something for it.
Very good. Very good. So if you could relate to what you're selling, which is your own, as if it was someone else's, might that give you some more freedom, play, and lightheartedness in relation to it?
Good point. I'll try that next time.
We'll be moving in that direction. Anybody else? All right, let's start to move things forward. Welcome, Katie, as well. So let's go with that next question, which Haley, you've already been starting to take us there. Evelyn, you have as well. Lexi, you may have touched on this as well. How would you like to experience sales? Because, we might be able to finish the webinar in 5 minutes if you all have got some good ideas around what you would like it to be. If we've got a bunch of things to go through today, but what would you like it to be like? the sales process?
Um,
To feel very organic and authentic.
Who was that there? Who shared there?
Feeling.
That was Haley. You'd like it to be organic and authentic, you said? So we will be working with authenticity, and although organic is part of the process, I would also put forward that it's really important that we have, and not to say that growing organics doesn't have a system too, just making sure that when we say organic, that we also recognize that inside of sales, we can be very system oriented as well, in terms of going, okay, so I'm talking to somebody, then what is the next step? Yeah, and we'll come back to clarity in relation to steps, but I appreciate both sentiments for sure. And we are actually going to be exploring, I've kind of changed the SaaS model a little bit for today, for those people who know it, the 7 authentic sales skills. So we're going to be coming back to something I call SaaS there. Lexi, if you've been with me a couple of times now, you'll be noticing that the acronyms just keep on bombing. That won't stop. Yeah.
Great.
Anything else that you'd like to add in terms of how you want the sales process to be for you, the sales experience to be for you?
I would like it to really have just ease and flow, and as a feeling of non-attachment to any outcome.
Great. Great. You guys are racking up the distinctions that I'd like to go into today. Yeah. We do want it to be easy. It's really uncomfortable for somebody that we may be going through a sales process with when we're uncomfortable. So if we're at ease, easy, then it makes it better for the other person's mirror neurons. They can feel relaxed because you are. Yeah. And if we're comfortable throughout that, we can create a space in which positive emotions are experienced. And, you know, people buy through their emotions and then justify rationally, but we actually buy through our emotional connection to a significant degree. So we're starting to get some ideas around what traditional notions have been, or what our cultural codes are in relation to sales, and how we'd like it to be. And the good news is you are the salesperson, so you can make it be whatever you want it to be. Yeah, it is whatever you bring to the process. So a lot of people get stuck inside of sales of feeling like they need to convince people. That's not where we're wanting to come from. There's a couple of people who have put forth, Haley being one of them, but you're not the only one, who said that sales is about sharing. And I'd say it's about sharing in the context of mutual purpose. You know, there is 2 people who are coming together. There is actually a mutual purpose that brings you together for that conversation. And therefore, it's a meaningful and rich conversation. Now, let's get a little bit of a sense of what kind of people we've got with us today. Who works in either a therapeutic or a coaching context? Can I just see a show of hands? So that's most people. Evelyn, Haley, would you be willing to share with me what space you work in to give me a little more context?
I'm a yoga teacher, so I guess that's also therapeutic in some sense.
Yeah, I'll go with that. Haley, what about you?
I help foreigners retire in Chiang Mai by guiding them through the relocation process.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty therapeutic.
We're all here for that reason.
Yeah, in a certain sense we are. But that's a high trust process, I imagine, with people, where building trust throughout that relationship is going to be very important in terms of people making that choice or not. I imagine it's a very big life choice for many people to make, and who they choose to have support them inside of that won't be a decision that they take lightly if they're relocating from one part of the world to another. So we're all inside of a services space here, and we're all working in a space of trust. I wanted to clarify that because what I'm sharing with you today is going to work better for people who are in a services space, and particularly is geared towards high value services, because that's what I work in, and so that's what I know about. I know about a variety of sales spaces other than this as well. However, really what I'm focusing on is a form of sales in which we can give a lot. And in order to have the time and space and a context for us to be uber generous, to be able to give of our time, to be able to give of whatever we have in terms of resources and so on, It's important that there is some kind of healthy back end to the process, or otherwise we could find ourselves spending so much time in trust building, and still, if we were to move from trust building into saying yes to one another, it may not work out for us in terms of creating a sustainable livelihood. So I'm really talking today about processes in which we can go through a trust building a relationship towards doing something together, which is potentially going to be a relationship of quite a duration. And I don't know what you guys have for products or services. However, I'm going to be putting forward that if you are interested in this kind of process that we're going through, it's great if you've got something which is going to be somewhere in like a 3-month plus, or otherwise a certain thousands of dollars plus back end to it, depending on what it is that you're doing there. Now, really, for me, sales is about building relationship. It's about loving people and doing our best to be there for people in a connected way at each step along the way. And sales is the result. It's not even the focus of the relationship. It's the byproduct of a certain kind of relationship, in addition to having steps inside of a process in which somebody can go, oh, okay, it's clear what we do next. When you brought up the word before, Haley, that I have a really good relationship to of organic, I went, yeah, this is true, in as much as there's an organic feeling that can be there, and things can arise organically. Like the amount of people that I've met in a cafe, and then things have moved from one place to another. There's no rhyme or reason to it. So organic and spontaneous in that regard. At the same time as that, one thing that really gets in the way for a lot of people is not having things in place, such as, first of all, have this kind of a conversation. If we want to keep engaging with each other, the next framework for conversation would be this. Inside of one of my conversations, there's a contract. From the point of contract, there is a transactional mechanism, which is easy to access, a way that somebody can turn their yes into money that goes into your account, so that then we're all the way through to the point of it being full commitment to one another. And we want to know how that can be very simple. Mine is very, very simple, but we want to know what our own process is if we're going to be able to work with people in a clear way to be able to progress a relationship. Again, this does not mean forcing a relationship towards a sale. I know that I've done that before, at least, you know, on a subconscious level. That's been in my space of, I want this sale. And then when I'm in a certain sense trying to push something towards that outcome, you brought up sleazy and slimy, Lexi. Yeah, that's kind of that feeling that could come into the space there for me of like, whoa, right now I'm in this moment for me. And that's never what it's about for me, the game of life. So happy to have you here, Ant. I've been missing you, brother. Welcome to the space. So what we're going to look at is what I'm calling SAS, 7 Authentic Sales Skills. And they're more principles than they are specific skills, although specific skills will come up in the conversation. Welcome to the space, Ant. So the first of these, so I'm just going to barrel through these quickly, and then we're going to go through them in more detail. But you may want to take them down as we go through. Now, the first thing is love what you sell. You know, if you are not in love with what you're doing or what you're offering, you're at a major disadvantage inside of a sales process. And you're probably in a space where if you've only got something like 80 or 90 years of life, if we're lucky, we could be choosing to invest our time somewhere else, which is more nourishing for us. So it starts off with really loving what we sell. We'll come back to that. Number 2 is love who you serve. So if you love what you do and you love who you do it for, you've got yourself the beginning of an ecology, which is going to be sustainable and nourishing. Yeah. Now we'll come back to this more. Number 3 is make it apt. That means APT, make it fit for the cause. It's actually another acronym. We'll come back to the acronym, but make it fit for the cause. Yeah, that it actually solves problems, helps people achieve what they want, etc. Number 4, be good at what you do. And what I'm really talking about here is be good at the service that lies beyond the sale. If we have real trust in ourselves in terms of what kind of experience people are going to have if they choose us, it's a lot more easy to be enthusiastic. And I mean, that's a little key principle for it in and of itself. Enthusiasm sells. Yeah, the light in your eyes, enthusiasm means to be filled with the Spirit of God. The light in your eyes sells. And so when you're enthusiastic about what you do, well, you know, that's going to be very helpful, and it's going to be much easier to be enthusiastic if you're good at what you do. We'll come back to that. Be grateful at every step. It's the next principle. Be grateful at every step, regardless of whether they say yes or no. Those of you who have been in spaces with me recently, I've probably said a couple of times, I believe that humans have one choice, and that is how to spend their time. That's it. It's the one choice that humans have. Where do I choose to be? With whom? Doing what? Because we're given a certain coil, if you call it like a candle, we're given this certain candle, and it's where we choose to actually take that flame during that time. Yeah. And so for someone to choose to spend time with you is already a gift. Number 6, make it easy. No one wants to go through processes that feel convoluted, messy, unclear. Okay, what do we do now? And you're there going, oh geez, I don't know myself. Yeah, so make it easy. Know what your steps are. Yeah. And finally, and most importantly in some ways, say yes to you. Don't worry about them saying yes to you. Just say yes to you. You know, if we do that, that's the difference between being in a game and not playing at all. It's the deeper victory. I'll just spend a moment on that just to say that, you know, for those of us who have been desirous of an intimate relationship and yet kept on finding that we won't approach those people that we want to be intimate with, as the case may be, that's us saying no to ourselves before allowing the other person to say yes or no. And that's a guaranteed no. And so what we do is we know that the principle there is that, you know, yes lives in the land of no. We need to be willing to risk a no. And our job is to say yes to ourselves. Welcome, Stephanie. I've just gone through, good. I've just gone through 7 authentic sales skills as a model, but now we're actually going to dig into each one. So in a certain sense, I've just gotten to the point of telling people what I'm going to tell them. Now I'm going to tell them, and then at the end we'll tell you what I told you, if you know what I mean. If that there are 3 elements that take place inside of any conversation: future pace, bring it into the present, and then look back. And then we've got 3 time signatures, and that's a sales skill in and of itself. To future pace people, go through it, and then recap. Yeah. So love what you do. Here's my question for you: why do you do what you do? And I literally want you to take a moment for that, to address that question. Why do you do what you do? Is there anyone who actually wants to share into the space? If there is, we can go there. But I just want to give you just 30 seconds first, and then we'll come to that. Yeah, great. I'm sorry, I've forgotten your name from last time. Can you please share with me again?
Me?
Yeah.
Dalit.
Dalit. Thank you, Dalit. Yeah. So why do you do what you do? I recognize your name outside of the Hebrew context now because I've seen it.
You know, I have to change it. I don't know how I'm getting confused. Anyway, I think I started doing for the last more than 30 years. That was what I needed for myself. It started with body treatment. It's very wide. I mean, I'm starting for 29 years. All that issues. So I started with my own needs, and I think that once you give it, you get it back. I sell through my hands stay inside. That's what I feel. And I think that makes balance to everybody, because usually we're two, you know. One of the treatment bed and one is getting treatment from the one who treats him.
Yes. So I want to start with a key principle that you shared here, is that part of your why is because you've gotten so much from the very thing that you want to share with people, from the very thing that you share with people. And that's a beautiful personal connection to whatever it is. Like, I know Turn, one of the things you've been working with people is on water work, water body work, and you've received so much from that. So there's a personal connection there. I hazard a guess, Evelyn, that you've gotten a lot out of your yogic path. And if we were to go through with each of the people here, we'd find that there is some deep personal connection to that. I would put forth this element of going that on the one hand, we want to know what our own personal why is. And we also want to know, in a certain sense, what our transpersonal why is. And what I mean by that is, what does this contribute to the greater whole? When we're clear about both of these elements of how this has a real significance for me and how this has a significance for humanity or for the globe, then there is a force that can be very helpful when we're going into sales, because we do know when we're going into the sales context, we're going to get to a certain point where somebody says yes to you or somebody says no to you. Yeah. And that yes no equation is we're not wired for that to be an easy thing. It's something that we can cultivate over time. But when we've got a purpose that has us go, okay, whether it's yes or no, I'm going for it because I believe in what I'm up to. I have a deeper why. That's very helpful. Kayla, did you want to share? Because I saw that you unmuted yourself. Or is that just a coincidence? Kayla? All right, I'm going to go forward. I think I'm going to go forward. So, as I said before, yeah, when we have that deeper why, we've got the purpose, but also, as I said before, it brings enthusiasm. Like Dalit, I imagine that you can talk passionately about what it is that you do because it's something you care about. And I imagine that's the case. Well, I know a good number of people who are here. And so I know the enthusiasm that lives inside of you. So connecting to your deeper why, it starts with that. This second element is loving who you serve. Now, Kayla, if you can hear me, can you mute yourself? For some reason, I can't touch your video. I can just hear a little bit of a hissing coming through now and then. So, number 2, love who you serve. Now, what does it mean to love someone, first of all? I'd love to hear from you. What does that mean to love someone? This is outside the sales process. This is outside of the business area. What does it mean to love someone? What are some of the hallmarks of love?
Lately, I've been playing with this idea of love. What I come up with now is just to meet the person where they are with compassion and non-judgment.
So to have compassion for someone, yeah, for us to have compassion for someone, it helps to understand them. Would you agree with that? Yeah. So this is beautiful. If we can understand the person and then have compassion for their situation, we're in a good place to be able to love them through that process. Yeah. Anything else that you guys would like to add to what it means to you to love somebody?
To accept someone for whoever they are, the good and the bad.
Yeah.
And to really hear them.
And to what, sorry?
Really hear them, to really listen to them. Okay,
great. Now you're giving us a great pointer, Haley, in terms of where we can go to build that love, and that is to really listen to people. Yeah. In business, they call it market research. In life, we might call it a connected conversation, but it means to talk to the people that you want to serve and ask them about their challenges, ask them about their aspirations, ask them about what's going on for them. And when we find out from them in that way, we're going to have, again, a deeper understanding. Yeah. So this is helped along as well. You know, those of you who have been talking with me recently, you'll know that I really believe in curiosity, and that this root of curiosity, the root of cure, is the same as the root of care. So having curiosity, you know, leaning into wanting to understand from a place of care, can help us along. And it's really important that we have as much understanding as possible of the people we serve, because essentially we are in the business of doing three things, I believe. And that is helping people fulfill their aspirations, helping them solve problems, helping them transform. And so this is principle 3, and that's creating apt offerings. So creating things which are, so apt means fit for the cause. Yeah. So an apt shoe when you're in deep snow is a snow boot, and it's a very weird shoe if you would be going walking anywhere else. But on snow, it works really well. Yeah. Just like, you know, swimmers are good if you're going in for a swim, but they're not so good if you're in the snow, if that's all you've got. So we want something that fits whatever the purpose is. So we need to know 3 things there. What do people want to fulfill? What problems do they want to solve? What transformations can we help them to make? So let's sit with that for a moment. Let's sit with that for a moment. What I mean by that is, what things, let's start with aspirations. What things do the people that you serve want to achieve? What would they like more of? And that could be interior or exterior. It could be something in the inner world or the outer world. I'm going to hold this from going into dialogue at this stage, as much as I love to go into the dialogic space, but just checking on my time, I'm going to keep us moving forward for now, Dalid. Thank you. So next, what problems do they have that you can help them solve? I know I'm artificially breaking up things which are one and the same into separate spaces in a certain sense. They're just different ways of looking at the same things. But what problems can you help them solve? Now, aspirations and problems are generally known already by the people who we're working with. Like they know this is what I want. They know this is what I don't want anymore. Transformations is subtly different. And that is, what transformations will they experience through working with you that they may not know that they actually want? They may not know that that's what's going to happen, but what transformations are likely to occur? I'll give you an example. For example, a lot of people who come to work with me know that they want to solve problems in the area of relationship. Yeah. Yet they don't necessarily know they're going to have a transformation in which their identity becomes more vaporous, and their sense of connection to something greater is going to be the final result of what actually takes place together. So the transformation of identity. Now, we've only just started to till the soil, if you will, on those questions. But if you're wanting to go further in terms of getting clearer about what you are offering people, spend some time with those questions. What can I help people to fulfill? Yeah, what aspirations can I help them to fulfill? What problems can I help them to solve? What transformations can I facilitate? And although you might find certain things are in all 3 buckets, there's a chance that each one of those angles will give you a different way of being able to articulate what it is that you do with people. What we're really wanting to do is we're wanting to get things that people recognize. We want to make sure that our language translates really easily. We want a jargon-free explanation of what we can do for people, do with people. Yeah. So Here's a further thing in this area. So in the sales process, when we're coming to the point of discussing what it would mean to work with one another, people are much less interested in your methodology than what the methodology is going to do for them. They're much less interested in, Evelyn, what specific yogic form it is than what the yoga is going to do for them. Yeah, they're much less interested on my side in what my coaching methodology is called and what its specific principles are than exactly what we can tackle together, exactly what we can address. And the clearer we are about these lists of problems, aspirations, etc., that we can support people with, when we get to the sales part of a process, which for me is often like 3 or 5 hours from when I first started engaging with somebody in a one-on-one space, there's a substantive, or there's a very real conversation that we're having at that stage. These are the things that we'll be focusing on. Yeah. There's one other thing I'll add at this stage, and that is that in this thing of aspirations, problems, and transformations, we can think of these as in terms of key areas. So inside of my contract, for example, I have intrapersonal things that we will do together. So things which is the person's relationship to themselves, mindset, emotion, things that are involved in their own personal well-being. Yeah. And so we'll talk about those aspirations, those problems, those transformations as one element. A second component that I'll work with people is the interpersonal. So this is a second kind of aspirations, problems, transformations we can go into. Interpersonal shifts that can take place. And the third one, I'll call it transpersonal, but when I say transpersonal, for everyday concerns, I actually mean like project or career. Because very often when people are focused on a project or career, it has something to do with their bigger purpose. And so now we are starting to talk about something which is transpersonal, something which is about something bigger than just how I feel or just how things are in my house. And rather it's about my relationship to the greater whole. Yeah. And so the three of those together, intrapersonal, interpersonal, and transpersonal focuses, if we can articulate clearly things that we can potentially work with people on that will be of benefit in one or more of those areas, then obviously the more of those areas that we can address and the more deeply we can address those areas, the higher our value is to somebody. If I can say to somebody, I can help you with your business, that's one thing. If I can say to somebody, I can help you with your business, and in the process, we will address the mindset you're operating from and improve your relationships within your business and at home, the value of what I've just said has gone up. Would you agree? You can give me a thermometer reading on that one, or a nod. A nod is good too. All right. So number 4, be good at what you do. Would you choose you? It's always a good question to ask. Very good, Evelyn. I love that you just went straight to it. Yeah. And yeah, very good, Dalit. So we want to know, first of all, would we choose ourselves? And then we want to know why we would choose ourselves. What are your, so here's another one of these acronyms, and it's GPS, your personal GPS. What are your gifts? And when I mean gifts, what are your talents? What are your traits? Yeah. Talents, the things that you're naturally good at. Traits, the qualities that are innate or natural to who you are. Yeah. We can also look at your gift as being what in your life story has prepared you for this. The events or the people, they are also gifts that live inside of you. Yeah. Then being good at what you do also has the P element involves, and this is kind of love what you do as well, but it's passions. What are you passionate about? What do you read about, think about, talk about? And this helps you to be good at what you do. And when people get that you're passionate about what you're up to, trust is natural. They want to come to the person who cares about this area. And the S element is skills. So we got our gifts, our passions, and our skills. Yeah. So if gifts is who we are and passions is what we love, skills are the bridge that bring those things together. For example, you could be, say for example, you're an online coach or an online therapist. And this is a very simple example, but you could be great in terms of being able to connect with people, deep listener, great with respectfully probing questions and so on. And you could be very passionate about this area of going deep and perhaps going far with people or whatever it is. But if you didn't have the skills of knowing how to use Zoom and how to send the right information through to people, etc., there would be a missing bridge that you wouldn't be able to bring those gifts and those passions together. And so skills. Now, gifts and passions are almost hardwired, but you can always improve your skills. Why I'm bringing this up in this way in relation to sales is because who you are is also important in terms of the sales process. You're not the hero. The hero is the person that you serve, but you have got that role inside of their journey as being kind of like the mentor or the Gandalf character, that person that they meet somewhere on their journey that can help them to open up that next part of the adventure, to go further. And so once you've actually, like we went into before, of loving who you serve and clarifying their aspirations, their problems, etc., now you know their hero's journey. At this point, in terms of being good at what you do, now you're telling them, in a sense, who you are to be able to support them on their hero's journey, if that makes sense, to support them with where they're going. And so know your own story, so I said, would you choose you? An extension of that, what makes you the right person? Of course, it takes two to tango. So you won't be the right person for every person, but you'll be the right person for many. We don't need to be the right person for everyone. We can ask a couple of other questions here, like what do you feel most competent with? Yeah. And of course, if we're moving towards professional development, this is the beauty of skills. You can always build your skills. So what skills would you like to improve? Evidently, you are already doing that. You're already proactive people. That's why you're here. Yeah. Now, with that, what else? So, I once upon a time created a skills document, which I still give to some unfortunate people, that has a list of some like 250 skills for people to assess themselves from 0 to hero. But if you can clarify for yourself more simply than that, what are the most important skills for me to be effective in my work? And then ask yourselves which of these are most developed and which of these are least. There lies your work. If you can develop those less developed skills, some of them, of course, I've got to acknowledge, are skills that many of us have been avoiding. For example, some of those skills might be like, oh, I need to learn how to do MailChimp, which is why it's also really important to know your deeper why. Yeah. Because when we've got a really strong connection to our deeper sense of purpose, we're willing to go through the sacrificial process of doing the things which aren't as much fun in order to be able to make that happen. Or of course, you can ask yourself, who do I know who knows that? And then you can create some kind of symbiotic relationship that can be taken care of through money or barter or whatever the case may be. Yeah. So moving along, this next part of wholehearted sales to me is really important, and it's be grateful at every step of your relationship with somebody. Like, here's a mantra that you can take to the bank of happiness, and that is, thank you, I love you. You say right now in your head about anything, look at the fan behind you, Evelyn, feel the seat underneath you there, Haley, whatever it is, and just say to whatever that thing is, thank you, I love you, and watch the good feelings start to emerge inside of you. It's very simple. Thank you, I receive love. I love you, I acknowledge and give love. Yeah. And so to have somebody choose to have a conversation with you, whatever the context, thank you, I love you, as being a kind of guiding force inside of that, keeps us in a very healthy, warm, loving space. Now, sales brings up a lot of fear for a lot of people, and not least of all because many people are trying to take care of their base of their Maslow's hierarchy through that sale. They're hoping they'll feel more secure when the person says yes. And so the space can get clouded with fear. But as they say in The Prosperous Coach, which is a fantastic book for exploring this kind of territory, The Prosperous Coach by Rich Litvin, and I'm forgetting the name of the other fellow right now, but they say needy is creepy. You ever had somebody who's been interested in you, attracted to you, and you can sense that there's a lot of neediness in it? How sexy is that? How much more sexy is it when somebody actually wants you but doesn't need you? Yeah. And so we can take that same principle into the sales element of, I want to work with you, I don't need to. And let us start with, you know, what can we do to cultivate that awareness that we don't need somebody? Look, I know that some people might think that Buddha was a naughty fella for running away from his wife and baby, and I might be inclined to agree. However, the essence of this story doesn't lie in that particular choice. It's that when he achieved, or when he came into a state of samadhi and went into nirvana and had enlightenment and stabilized in that state, he had no money, had no relationship, he had no home, he had nothing. And most of us here have so much more than that already. And yet it's still easy for us to go into a sales process and feel like, if I don't get this, then something's wrong. But it's not. Still going to have your 10 trillion cells somehow coming together in a symphony to create this experience of being present here in this moment. You're still going to be able to do the same things you do every day. Eat, drink, sleep, have shelter. Yeah, things will get easier, and there may be more choice through a sale being a yes. But when we can dispel this notion that a no is going to threaten our person, then we can relax. And a relaxed central nervous system is just so much better for everybody, regardless of the result of the sale. Because what we're really in is, we're in the business of building relationship. Yeah, regardless of whether it turns into business, we're really in the space of honoring relationship. So we'd be grateful at every step. Likewise, when we're grateful and we don't cloud the space with the fear and concern of whether the person says yes or no, we're in a much better position for the long game. So anyone here in the coaching space or the therapy space ever had a conversation with somebody at a certain time and then things have disappeared, but however long later that person gets back in touch with you? I've had that many times over. Yeah. And that happens when we've done really well in terms of connecting with that person in that moment. And obviously, again, when we've got that neediness out of the space and we've got a good heart space going on between us, it keeps that door wide open for whatever that moment is in the future. I've had people who have come back to me at a later point when suddenly they've had a windfall and they're like, I wanted it. I wanted to be with you. I wanted to work with you. It just wasn't possible at that stage. And I know that for me, I'm always grateful. It's like, always, okay, I'm most of the time inside of a stable center of gravity of gratitude, because I really enjoy the conversations that I have with people. And so because of that, I feel like I'm playing the long game well. And that's a key part of sales in services, is that there's a short, mid, and long-term game. And you will become known over time, not as the person who always closes sales or whatever it is. You'll become known for your energy. You become known for your character. And if you show up beautifully for people and you operate from these core principles of being loving and kind to them, regardless of where the result is taking you, in terms of your short-term interests, the long game will be in a good position. Yeah. So yeah, really, that the emphasis on that is that we are here to nourish relationships. In a certain sense, the most important currency that you can create is the currency of trust. As I'm sure many of you have experienced before, when people have experiences with you, They'll often tell other people about it. And I read some of the reviews of the work that you were doing with people going back a few months ago on your Facebook page. And people were passionate in advocating for what you were doing. And so when we take really good care of people in this way, irrespective of result, word gets back in good ways. Okay, number 6, make it easy. So let me tell you about I have a business model, another acronym, CRISP business model. And so it goes like this. I contact people. That one there, Haley, is often organic, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes I see somebody go, oh, I'm going to contact you. With the people that I have contact with a certain amount of them, I relate with them. Again, or refresh, late, find out what's been going on lately. Yeah. The contact is like with tact, be in contact with people. Con means with, tact is like tactfully. Then, and then relate, find out what's going on for people lately. And then, if it's appropriate, I invite people to have a deep conversation with me about the area of interest that we've been talking about. Now, at that point, I serve. I don't have any money in this. There's no money. I just serve. And generally, I spend somewhere 2 hours plus with somebody inside of this service space. So I could have had a contact and relating conversation that could have been however long. Now I have 2 hours plus where I'm with somebody and I give. I give my best. I know that if we can transform a key area of their life inside of that time, then something will have shifted, new energy will have come. And then if on the other side of serving, both they and I, because I don't assume that I'm going to want to work with everybody, and I don't assume that I'm just selling myself. I think that I'm also buying customers. What I mean by that is I'm looking for the folks that I want, because I only work with people for 6 months plus. So if I'm going to have someone be one of my inner circle over the next 6 months, I really want it to be somebody I like to hang out with, And so if it's appropriate at the end of serving, then I'll have a proposal conversation. I separate those personally. Now and then people are just like, look, we've done this today. I want to get the party started. Let's go. And then I go, okay, if you want to, we can talk about that now. But I split them apart. Then I have a proposal conversation. Inside of a proposal conversation, I have a contract. And I use the contract to be able to talk to their aspirations, problems, and potential transformations. And there's a script which I'll modify depending on the person, so it sings to their song sheet, so that it's in harmony with what's going on in their life. And I'll use that contract like a jazz musician sheet, meaning that there's key points on it, but I'll go off the script all the time and talk to their particular situation. So say, for example, if there's something in the contract to do with nourishing and nurturing their key relationships, then I might jump off script and go, so last time we got together, we were talking about your father, and I know you took an action there. We'll be able to continue to nurture that relationship over time so that we're connecting it directly to the things that are real inside of their life. Now, anyway, point being, in terms of having a clear structure, after a proposal, there needs to be a means for transacting. So the proposal goes, how do they sign it and get it back to you? And there's various different software you can do, or you can do what I did for a long time, which is basically send a Word document to somebody with the text box filled in with my name and get them to send it back to me with their name filled in the other one. And that's a way of saying that the documents changed between the email going in that direction and coming back in the other. But you need something if you're wanting to have a high value service that says we've both put our names to this. Yeah, you don't need, I don't want to say that. I'll say that it's professionally better practice to have something where you can say we're both there, there's our names, we've agreed to something here and it's clear what we've agreed to. And then, as I said before, there's a financial portal. Now, it's very difficult for us to go through a sales process with confidence if we don't have those steps mapped out, at least up here, if not in some kind of documentation. Yeah. So if you've already got that, and I'm teaching you something there where you're like, don't need that at all, my apologies. But for many people, inside of the coaching space and therapeutic space, contracts are just not a thing. People just say, oh, it's, you know, it's $1,000 or it's a couple of $1,000, and then they send them a PayPal link and that's the end of it. But there's no clarity about exactly what's gone into that or what each side is signing on for. Yeah. So that brings us to the last one, and that is saying yes to you. And what I mean again by this is yes or no in terms of whether or not a sale becomes a sale, or whether a proposal process becomes a sale. It's not your business. It's your business to take care of that process to the best of your abilities at every single step. That's what you can do. What you can do is you can take things through to the point of proposal and give that proposal and give yourself a handshake, give yourself a hug, and pat yourself on the back for having done your best with everything that you have control over. And from there, you let it be in the other person's hands. You said yes to you. You said yes to every single bit of effort you could put into the process. The person's yes or no, they might think it's personal. Ultimately, it's not. It's something inside of the matrix of the universe about whether or not they choose to say yes or no to you. But it's entirely their business about whether or not they choose to engage with you from that point. And the more comfortable you get with no, the more yeses you will find yourself attracting. The more yeses will naturally come, because there won't be the fear in the space. And ultimately, what people are, this might sound weird, but what people are really buying is they're buying love, and they're buying the absence of fear. When they choose to come into therapy, when they choose to go towards coaching, they're inviting, or if they're choosing to come over to Chiang Mai to live, Haley, they're inviting in more love of themselves and of life. And they're letting go of whatever the fears and concerns are that were in their old life. And so when we can say yes to ourselves and have no fear about someone else's yes or no, then they can go towards that knowing that there is a fit, there's an energetic fit, because you're holding a space of love with an absence of fear. And that's really at the heart of what I'd call wholehearted sales, is to be in a space where we feel completely at ease. This can be harder to do than it is to say, but what I can share with you is that I recognized the need for this going back a couple of years ago, when my wife and I had drained our savings right down. And here I was going, okay, as the primary breadwinner for my family, I have a responsibility to take care of us. And therefore I was creating these stories of fear and concern in my mind. Oh, come on, Cairo, you have to get these sales. And then I was checking my space. I was like, I don't want to go to anybody with this, I need you, as we were talking about earlier. And I did my inner work, basically, of coming to a space of whether or not the person says yes or no to me. As I said before, these essentials of life, I'm still going to have the relationships I care for most. I'm still going to breathe. I'm still going to drink. I'm still going to sleep. I'm still going to do the basic things of what it is to be a human, which is the lion's share of what makes life rich. And when I know that I'm not going to be diminished one way or the other by the outcome, then things just completely shift. At that point, it was about August coming towards September. And I set myself, which was for me at that time, an outlandish goal. This is like 2.5 years ago. And as I said, I'd been watching things go like this because I've been doing things at a very low price point, and I'd also been mostly focusing on content creation. But I set myself a goal of making $60,000 by the end of the year. And I made it by the end of October. So I did in August, September, October. And the biggest shift was a space for me of being in open space, letting go of the fear, letting go of this being in any way a threat to me, or in any way a measure of you're good or you're not, or whatever the case may be. So that's why I want to dwell on that, is to say that the clearer your own space can be, the more people are going to feel that, the more people are going to want to be working with you, the more trust that'll be there. So let's do a little recap. And if we've got time, I'd love to go through some observations or questions that may be there for you. And I'm happy to sit around for a little while longer. But what we've talked about today is, number one, recognizing what the social scripts around sales can be, and checking our space in terms of whether or not they're coming into the way that we feel in relation to sales. Number two, what kind of framework we're putting around sales for ourselves, what we want that experience to be, what kind of relationship we're wanting to create with the people that we're working with throughout that process. We then went into these 7 success, or these 7 authentic sales principles. So number one inside of that is know your deeper why. And I can't emphasize that enough. Yeah. One thing, you know, there's a lot of people inside of the coaching space, and I love people who are in the coaching space. At the same time as that, I believe there's a lot of people who are in it for validation at a certain level. If somebody is willing to take me on as a guide, I can feel better about myself as a person. That's not a deeper why. That's a surface level why. Yeah. A deeper why has got something to do with, this is a gift that I'm wanting to share. This is going to create more love in the world. This is going to lead to a deepening of consciousness, etc. Number two, love who you serve. Get in their world, understand them. Make sure that you're clear about how you can articulate what it is that they're going through, so that they can hear themselves coming out of your mouth, so that they can see that they are seen, so they can hear that they are heard, yeah, feel that they're felt, etc. Number three, make sure that your offering is going to support them. It's an apt offering, yeah, that it's going to support them to achieve their aspirations, to solve their problems, to make key transformations. Number four, be good at what you do. And I believe that just like any system in nature, replenishment is important. So for me, for example, throughout this last year, I've had 3 mentors that I've been working with, because yes, I'm a teacher of many people. I have a lot of clients and so on, but I never see myself as having mastered it, having figured it out completely by any means. And I continue to go from the humble space of learner and a student to different spaces, and keep on learning, whether that's through books or to people, etc. Number five, be grateful at every step. Be grateful that someone's talking with you. Be grateful that someone's willing to have a sales conversation with you, in which you can talk, especially that, in which you can talk with them about the very thing that you've invested your life in. And what better conversation is there to have with someone than to talk with them about what you're passionate about and that they happen to be interested in? So be grateful for that opportunity. Number six, make the process easy. Know where you are inside of a process and where that process can go. Yeah. And number seven, just let go of any fear about what somebody else thinks about or says to you. Allow that to be their business. Just say yes to you. And like, there's something that with one of my clients recently, I said to them, I want you to come back next time in 2 weeks, and I want somebody to have said no to you at that price point. You know, invite in the no's is what I'm saying. Get comfortable with no. When you're comfortable with no, you're completely free. Yeah. So that's what I've got for us for today. I'm going to be taking groups, whoever's here, over coming Saturdays through more business processes. I've actually got a program called The Great Work, in which we get really meticulous about different areas of the work of being a therapist, of the work of being a coach, of crafting your offering, of getting into your client's world, of key messages, of looking at exactly who you are to be able to serve people, looking at how to set up contracts and so on, getting into the more, finer details of some of the things that I've talked about a little bit more generally today. But for today, that's what I've got to take you through. So with that, I've done so with 2 minutes to spare, but I'm happy to sit around for a little while longer, because some of the most valuable things can take place inside of dialogue. Of course, there's no pressure to stick around, and we've seen that Haley's now gone, for example, and there's no pressure to stick around. You can pop off at any point. But if there's any observations that you have, any feedback or any questions, now's the time. I'm happy to hear about your own personal circumstances, and we can have a conversation about it.
Okay, Ro.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you have?
Hey,
Hey.
Hey, man.
Would you have a few more questions that are going alongside the deeper why question, as in some deep dive or deeper question than what is your deeper why?
Sure. I'd go for some things such as, what transformations have I made that have been very significant to me? This is to go more out into the world as a whole, but what would I like to see more of in the world? What would I like to see less of in the world? Another one, what does it mean to live a good life? Anybody else want to add to that little list? I could go further, but you know, it's a start. Are they helpful, Ned?
Yeah, very much so. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, brother. Yeah, next up. Personal situations are very much invited. So, Cara, this is what's going on for me right now.
Yeah.
Very cool. Thank you, brother.
So I think within the service and skills I offer to people, I'm quite confident, and I see the results, and basically it comes down to bringing people in bliss and healing, and and reflect on that for integration in their life. So one, it's kind of like, it could be maybe one of those topics you mentioned before as part of the business process, but as I spend most of my time in Thailand, I'm kind of like considering, okay, how should I propose myself legally, and like, you know, like cover myself for offering a service that that those things, that's kind of like legally, that there's no stress, and that what I do is accepted by the government and people, the community around me that I'm active in. So I don't know, you've been through that, so maybe I'm sure there are other people in this, and so that's where I am at for now.
So with that, there's a clear distinction. It's actually a muddy distinction of sorts, but there's a clear distinction between online work and in-person work. There is no way for them to regulate the digital nomad community. You know, and this is literally been said even by the Chiang Mai chief of immigration. We can't do anything in terms of regulating whether or not somebody works online. It's just impossible. Somebody gets off a plane, opens up their phone, answers an email, and they're already working. And so if the offering is online, that's one thing. When the offering is in person, I know that, as you know as well, Tern, that there's a lot of people who continue to just do what they do regardless of what their visa situation is. Now I'm talking to you as a father, and that's to say that risking my own place inside of living here in Thailand when we've set up our whole family meant that I wanted to make sure that I was completely covered on that side. For those of you, hands up who's in Thailand right now. So it's the majority. Katie would have her hand up as well, so we can see that that's like the majority of people who are here. Now, and hands up if you've got a business visa. Okay, great. So Stephanie's gone through this process before. The simple answer inside of this turn for me is that if you want to be legit and not have a looking over the shoulder thing, especially living in a small province like Mae Hong Son, where our visibility is quite high, then as with most things in life when it comes to bureaucracy, there's no questions that money can't answer. So the process is money plus time equals legality. And I don't know what that means at this time, but I would say that if it's working with people in person, that's your own choice. I'm not here to advise you. I can only tell you what I went through, which was I was here for 4 years and I did nothing paid in person. No, that's not entirely true. I had a couple of clients over that time. Oh, excuse me, that's not entirely true. What do I want to do? I want to be honest. I was like, oh, maybe I can backtrack on that. So no, I can't. So I had a couple of clients that I met in person throughout that time, but really it was very minimal. I worked online and I just didn't want to risk my position here in Thai society. And so that's why I worked through to the point of getting legal on that side. Then the process for me is about finding somebody that you trust, who's willing to be intimately engaged and take us through the process in a good way. So my lawyer, who's actually a paralegal, her name's MJ, and she was gorgeous with me at every step. From the first time I sat down with her and she got drunk whilst she explained to me the ins and outs of what it is to move through this process. And she won me over by being so relaxed and free inside of that process. But she was meticulous in terms of taking me through what would be the process step by step. So I don't know if there's much for you there, but I'd be very happy to talk with you outside of this call to share with you more about exactly what that cost and exactly what that process was like.
Thank you. Yeah, great insights. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Anybody else? What's going on? What thoughts you got? What questions you got? What's the bottleneck in your business, if anything? Yeah, Dalit.
It's a short thing. I mean, I used to have a spa in my house. I mean, 2-bed spa, but I closed it once. I kind of fall down as a person, and then you think, okay, I thought to myself, I got a good hands. I let somebody else deal with this selling, which is very bad, to my opinion. So we won't talk about that because then you're just one of many who are treated on a very low basic of appreciation, not to talk about the money. The thing I want to say, sometimes you get to a person through his needs of to my it's his body or situation in life, and sometimes you get through being a friend and becomes in the business through that. Sorry, I lost my English. And it doesn't matter because it reaches the point where if you get what you need, and the other side, it doesn't matter which is the other side, if it's the selling side or the buying side. I think that once wishes are fulfilled in any issue, then both sides are benefits.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I really agree with that. It's one of the beautiful things about the work that we're in, that it's so nourishing for us. And coming back to something you said a moment ago in terms of where people come from, we never know. You know, there's inside of the Prosperous Coach, they call about ABC, which is always be creating relationship. I think about someone like you, Evelyn, or someone like you, Stephanie. Evelyn, starting with you, you know, you have been a community creator over these last couple of years, and therefore the amount of relationship that has been created there means there is a lot of goodwill in the space there. The question is, you know, whether or not you want to turn goodwill into a business beyond the Mind Body Spirit Festival, but in terms of having clear contacts with people who are already pre-qualified in so many ways for the kinds of things that you'd be interested in offering, that's already there. And you know, something very strange that's happened for me over the last few years. We've hosted these things called potluck parties. Never went into hosting potluck parties to create clients, but there's been tens of thousands of dollars of business that have come from hosting parties at our house. You know, because people come, they have a good time, trust is created, a certain relationship is engendered, and then there's a natural progression that can take place from there. The broader principle on that front is that energy out leads to energy in. Yeah. And so if we're putting good energy out, it's only logical that that energy may come back to us in different forms. James, you had your hand up before. You got it?
Yes, yeah. You asked a very deep question of, you know, what may be holding you back. I can see within this sort of GPS system that maybe you may have an absence of particular skills. You may have a lack of belief or exploration, at least. It starts with that, in your gifts. You may have, you know, waning passion. Maybe a certain tiredness of with where you are in life. And I can imagine that flow happens through a coach's career, because we all live lives. But I suppose the question is, what practices and insights do you have about through a career in coaching, how you may have highs and lows within your career, and what you do about that?
It's a really good question, James. And you know, as a friend with one another, there's some things that I see that you do that are really important for me as well. And that is the willingness to reach out to people when there is the low ebbs. For example, a couple of days ago, I made a very big choice for me inside of my business that brought up a lot of sadness, because it meant the end of a particular form of relationship with somebody. And on the other side of that, I felt a depletion of energy. And I felt, as I said before, a real sadness that was there. And so what I went to was to reach out. You know, it's one of the key things which is there is, if we're going to be selling coaching, and if coaching is support, then it's also incumbent upon me as a purveyor of support to be willing to reach out for support as well. Yeah, it's one of these misnomers that a coach should have everything covered by themselves, in and of themselves, in all circumstances. Actually, somebody who's a very effective coach is going to be willing to take the actions that are necessary, which are going to be of greatest benefit to their well-being. And so, so humility for me is important as far as that goes. In terms of the other components of what you're talking about, how to deal with the ebbs and flows, and this is one thing that I really admire in you as well, but I believe being an ever learner is really helpful. So, you know, for me, you know, I'm voracious when it comes to reading, when it comes to watching and learning and applying new things, and that helps to keep things fresh. There's something about the human mind that loves novelty, and there's something said to going deeper and deeper with specific things. But if we're going deeper and deeper with specific things whilst also bringing freshness to those very things, that is a way that I'm able to keep the game alive for myself. I did this thing at the CCI, the Creator Coaching Intensive here in Pi recently, where, so a game that I might play as well is, what is a new and novel way of doing something that I've done before? And Maddie said that, Kyra, what you just did then, if that was gymnastics, that would have had a very high level of difficulty score, because I basically took 4 tools and mushed them together into one new sequence that could be done in 10 minutes. But like, that to me is to treat my craft as an ongoing art in a certain sense, and see how I can bring things together in a fresh and new way.
Challenge yourself within your craft.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Because it's at the point that things get stale that the life force can kind of ebb out of them. So yeah, a few things there is the seeking of support, the continuing of learning, and the applying of things in new ways. But there's a fourth and just as important thing, and that is to know when it's time to pull back. And that's the one that I suck at most. Until life tells me, Kyra, you can't go forward anymore because you've blown your circuitry. And so that's what I've kind of traditionally done over the years, is that I get to a certain point and I burn myself out, and then I have a week of nothing. And I'd say that, you know, a smarter way than what I've lived is to be mindful of the way that we set things up to begin with, so that the exertion is not going to be beyond the sustainable energy flow, and also to be paying attention to when the light's going amber before it gets red and taking action accordingly.
Okay, so that's about boundaries for you.
It is about boundaries. It's about being proactive in my responsiveness to my own needs and being willing to step back when my wiring is so much to step forward. So
well, I'm sure your spouse gives you great support in that.
She does, thankfully. She does. yeah, not the only one as well. Is that helpful at all? Any of those things there?
Totally. I love that sequence. You came up with 4 things. I'm trying to find an acronym for them. I can only find SCAL at the moment.
SCAL? Yeah, well, if we could get a C in there, we could go from lax.
Seek, support, learn, apply, and you, and know when to pull back.
SCAL. Slack.
Slap, maybe. Pull back. Slap.
Slap. There we go. Or
yeah,
pals.
slap.
How to be pals with ourselves.
Okay, pal.
Anything else, my friends? So one thing I will say is that some of us may be wondering, how would we apply the skills that we have now into something new that we might want to move into, something new that we want to sell? Evelyn, you're the one who came to mind on this front, but it could be equally applicable for everybody. And first thing I want to say is that if you're in a one-to-many space, such as you've been, Evelyn, to a significant degree, perhaps you've been doing one-on-one coaching as well. Is that a thing?
One-on-one coaching as a provider or a receiver?
Or as a provider, have you been doing one-on-one yoga with people? As a receiver?
Oh, one-on-one, yes. One-on-one yoga, yes. I give one-on-one classes.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So great. So you've had that one-on-one experience. I suppose what I wanted to say is that those of us who are in the more one-on-one space, it's very easy for us to take the same thing and put it into a one-to-many context. Those of us who are in a one-to-many context, it's very easy to take that and put it into a one-on-one context. The principle on this is same content, different context. Very often people don't recognize that what you do in one space is actually what you can do in many spaces. It's just a matter of changing the framing, clarifying the framing, and then those things that we already do and already know can actually put us in great stead in that other space as well. This can be really helpful for if you're ever going, okay, I want to release something new, and you might, at least with many people I've worked with, experience some overwhelm. Oh my God, it feels so big to create something. But when we ask ourselves, what am I doing already? Okay, what would it look like to do that in a different context? Often we can find that we're 50% or more of the way there, that the distinctions of yoga are also the distinctions of mindset, that the distinctions of yoga are also the distinctions of relationship, yeah? But the distinctions that go into one, if you're someone who works on the body, are also the distinctions that can go into a group conversing about awareness, conversing about taking good care of themselves, etc. So this is just to say that there is a lot of transferable knowledge and skills that live inside of us. And if you're wanting to reimagine the context, you might be closer than you think in terms of having something to share. Bless you. Yeah. So with that, guys, I'm going to call us to a close for today. Oh, James, no, go again.
I was picking the gun on the thank yous, sorry.
Okay, cool. Unless there's anybody who's like, I've got something. In which case you got 5. Oh. Okay, so with that, I'm going to call it for today. However, please know that I'm on Monday. I've got I think it's called Your Questions, Create Your Relationships. And so that is looking at how we can transform our key relationships by asking different questions. Very often we get into habituals, how you going? Or what have you been doing lately? Rather than going deeper with how are you feeling right now? Or what have you been up to and what have you been learning? Or tell me about your childhood, or whatever the case may be. Now, so anyway, I won't go further into that. It's just to say that there's a communication one, which will be good for coaches as well as for individuals. Next Friday, I've got something called Big Mind, Little Problems. And it's about working with mindset by shifting the consciousness that we're operating from. When we think about a problem from a problematic mindset, then the problem only grows. It basically hinges on this one thing that many of you have heard me say before, that comes from a guy called Michael Neal. And that is that many of us, we think we have a problem with reality, when in reality we have a thinking problem. And that's where we can turn our attention, from the problems that we have to the thought, which is the problem, and becoming the consciousness, looking at the thought rather than being the thought itself, re-energizing itself. And then next Saturday, there'll be another business skills thing. So I'm continuing to just roll these for the time being, whilst we're many of us at home, and I've got the time and space to do so. As I said to you before, if there's anybody that you think would benefit from this stuff, it'd be great to have people sharing on behalf of me, given that Facebook has said to me, Cairo, you're unable to share with anybody beyond 50, and you're not allowed to message those people either. Like, really, I'm doing whatever I can just to put good work out there for people in whatever way. I do have the things that I'll be launching at a later point. Maybe some people who have done this stuff will come and join me for that. Regardless, I'm just focused on whatever I can give, let me give. So I'm just like, Facebook, please open that up for me. But yeah, so there's these 3 per week of a communication skills, a coaching skills, and a business skills webinar continue to roll for the time being. Oh, last thing, next Friday at 5 o'clock Thai time, we're having a digital party, 2 hours focused on reimagining the world. So if you're interested in a dialogue, which is looking at what's better than business as usual, if there's no going back, what do we actually want to go forward towards? We're bringing a group of people together for us to have that conversation. We'll do breakout rooms, we'll do collective stuff. There'll be creative elements that come into it as well. And that's not about learning any skills or me teaching any skills. It's just about bringing people together in a good connected context. So with that, as ever, thank you so much. You've spent a good chunk of your time with me, and I really appreciate the attention and concentration you've brought to this space, and your willingness to go on the journey together. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And for now, goodbye and go well. See you all. Bye-bye.